Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and our continuing coverage of E3 2017, this time from back at the home studio, which means good audio. I'm John Sable, and today we're talking about this little title on my shirt. And I'm wearing this shirt because I got it for free, and they were the only ones giving out free swag at the show. Come on, everyone else. Give out shirts, I'll wear it. And that's obviously Project Cars 2. So if you've been following the show, you know that I wasn't a huge fan of the driving physics in Project Cars 1. And by not a huge fan, I mean I didn't care for them at all. But I've been quietly optimistic for Project Cars 2 since it was announced, based mostly on all the different features that Project Cars 2 is supposed to have, and the fact that if Slightly Mad Studios is able to pull off all these features, it's gonna make Project Cars 2 a really, really popular sim racing title. But with that said, all those features really don't matter if the cars don't drive well. Well, with that said, after driving Project Cars 2 at E3 2017, the driving physics aren't a concern for me anymore. So my first drive in Project Cars 2 where I really got to get a feel of the physics was over at the Thrustmaster booth, driving the cover car, the McLaren 720S at Bannochbrae, a track I've never driven before, which is a theme of E3 2017. And I was driving in the brand new Sparco Evolve cockpit with Thrustmaster's new Sparco brand of wheels, which we've already taken a look at if you want to check that out. But driving in VR, apologize for the view. I went back and filmed this later with a better view of the TV, but for some reason that file was corrupt, so we'll have to make do with this. But anyway, beyond that, let's talk about my first impressions of Project Cars 2 and the physics. And wow, did it feel really good. Not only did the physics coming from the car felt good, but the force feedback from the game felt great, and then I was transitioning into the Thrustmaster wheel, and everything was just working, software and hardware side, really well together. And my biggest takeaway was that I was feeling tire flex, something I did not feel in Project Cars 1. The car felt into the road, not like my tires were made of stone on top of asphalt. The car was clearly riding on pliable rubber on the asphalt, and I could push it, and then the car would step out, and then I could catch it. And as you see here, I was doing a whole lot of catching because this car was super active, and I have to say, really, really fun to drive. I mean, I really do hope all cars in Project Cars 2 have this level of entertainment to drive. Now, I know high downforce cars are not going to be going and stepping out the back like in a road car like this, but man, this car was just so much fun. Like I said, it was so nice to feel the tire flex going into the corner, and then when that back end starts to step out, it wasn't automatically gone like it can be in Project Cars 1. There was an opportunity there to save the car and drive through the slide. And tire flex, I mean, that is the key word. That's the key word that I'm walking away from E3. What titles had tire flex and which ones didn't? And Project Cars 2, based off his first impression, the McLaren 720S has tire flex. Now on to my second experience with Project Cars 2 at E3 2017. This time I'm over in the Project Cars 2 booth, and I'm up on the CXC simulator, which, by the way, the simulator is insane, so this was quite the combo to go and drive. Before I talk, again, apologies for the driving. This was a new track for me. This is Algarve International Circuit. The circuit seemed to be done really well, but I'm not familiar with it. And also in new hardware, the CXC simulator with its own direct drive wheel, hydraulic brake pedal. It's a lot to adjust for, so be prepared to see some subpar driving happening here. But even with all that newness, I was able to tell that the Ferrari GT3 car that I was driving gave me a similar quality feel as the McLaren 720S. It felt into the track. And the more I talked to people in the know on Project Cars 2, the more this made sense. I had a chance to speak to Rod Chung from Project Cars 2 development team, and he talked about the physics work they've done in upping the fidelity in the tire model, allowing you to really feel things that were missed in Project Cars 1. And something really interesting that he spoke about was that they figured out how to get the tire to cut, especially on high downforce cars. So in Project Cars 1, when you were to turn into the corner on entry, especially in a high downforce car, instead of the car cutting, the car would push and take a more rounded path into the corners. Instead of the straight line that you're trying to get the car to take when you turn the wheel really quickly and try to get the front of the nose to point and shoot into the corner. And this round curve that it would take, what it would do is the nose would not turn as much as you want, and then it would over-rotate and pitch towards the apex of the corner more than you wanted, which would then cause you to correct. And then you would get into this back and forth of struggling, of fighting the car, not turning enough, and then turning too much, then not enough, and etc., etc. And you're always fighting that nose to get that perfect line through the corner. Well, now Rod's saying that this isn't an issue in Project Cars 2. When you go and you turn the wheel, the car will point and it will head along that path instead of pushing out and getting you into that oscillation of back and forth and really fighting the wheel. Now the car should properly track with your input, and that is really exciting, and I'm really keen to try this out in especially a high downforce car. I don't know if the Ferrari GT3 is enough of a high downforce car to fully show this off, but it sounds great, and I'm really looking forward to trying out Project Cars 2 in a high downforce car to see how well the front of the car points and shoots on entry into a corner. Now, another thing that Rod spoke to me about and wanted me to try out is their new live force feedback, which allows you to tune the force feedback on the fly. If you see me struggling to find the dial on the wheel, that's what I'm trying to do. He said each click only made a small adjustment, and to be honest, with everything going on, a new game, a new track, a new wheel, pedals, motion simulator, I couldn't tell a real difference between the settings, but this is something that I will have to be on the lookout for when we get to spend more proper time with Project Cars 2. Now, while my experience on the CXC simulator was a bit of a whirlwind at E3, I did get the chance the following day to head over to the CXC headquarters and get more acquainted with the setup over there. And while I didn't get a chance to drive Project Cars 2 while I was there, you're seeing me driving iRacing, I did talk to CXC owner Chris Considine about Project Cars 2, since they've been working with them quite a bit. You've seen CXC pop up in a lot of the promo videos for Project Cars 2. And there were a few interesting things that Chris said. First, he had similar feelings about Project Cars 1 as I did. So when Slightly Mad Studios approached CXC about collaborating together, I think it sounded like he was a bit skeptical, because again, like myself, the physics in Project Cars 1 didn't really set us alight. Second, Chris noted just how many of the real-world drivers of the cars in Project Cars 2 have come through CXC and given their input. It's one thing for a driver to come in and give input on 10 or 20 cars across all disciplines, but when the driver of an in-game car is only giving feedback on that car, that is really valuable. In fact, the Scuderia Corsa team that runs the real Ferrari 488 in the IMSA WeatherTech series, the same car that I got to drive at E3, has been working with Project Cars 2, and they say at this point that the car in Project Cars 2 is perfect and just like the real-life car. So between my two experiences with Project Cars 2 at E3, and then speaking with Rod and development work they're doing, and then speaking with Chris and some of the collaboration that they've done at CXC, and also getting his input from Project Cars 2, since Chris used to drive race cars himself, I think we're all in agreement that Project Cars 2 has some pretty good physics going on, and that I'm really excited to drive more Project Cars 2 in the future and for its release coming up later this year in September. So while I wanted this video's focus to be on the physics of Project Cars 2, because I think that's the most important thing, I also do want to note some of the other things I experienced since this was my first go at the game. So no surprise, Project Cars still looks great. The VR looked really good at CXC, better than on the Thrustmaster setup, so maybe there was some super sampling happening, but it looked really clear and ran great on both systems, whether it was the system over at Thrustmaster or the system over at the Project Cars booth. When I wasn't on the CXC simulator over at the Project Cars 2 booth, I did have a chance to quickly play the game with a controller on the PlayStation 4, and was very impressed with the graphics there, with the only game at the show coming anywhere close to the same category on the PlayStation 4 in terms of graphics being GT Sport. In the Ferrari race, you see the time of day change, I'll bet sped up, and the sun going down and shining in your eyes, which is great and challenging. I mean, just the whole experience of that sun going down and being right in your eyes, as you can probably see in the video, really difficult to see and very cool. And even just going over to the night racing, that whole transition looks awesome. So far, the AI seems to be behaving themselves pretty well, but it's hard to say after only a couple races. I'll have to definitely race the game more to give you really good feedback on the AI. But for my quick races in Project Cars 2, so far they seem not too shabby. So let's get to some final thoughts on Project Cars 2 as we exit from E3 2017 and move even closer to its release in September. I've been quietly optimistic for Project Cars 2. The stuff they are trying to do with the gameplay, offline and on, the laser scan tracks, the cars, the classes, have all sounded great. But none of that would matter if the cars still drove like they did in Project Cars 1. Well, I don't have that concern now, because what I've driven so far has been really good. Not to say that every car is going to be amazing, maybe I sampled the best of the bunch, but if the quality across the entire lineup is at this level, then I think Project Cars 2 is going to be very popular. So thank you for watching Inside Sim Racing. If you enjoyed this first look at Project Cars 2 at E3 2017, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out isrtv.com for the latest news, reviews, and our popular forums. Also check out the Amazon affiliate links in the description below. Click on the link, shop through Amazon. Doesn't cost you a thing, but kicks back a little bit towards us. For John Sable, thank you for watching Inside Sim Racing. Please take care of you and yours.